You guys see that helicopter up there? It's pretty cool. Back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. I have some very concerning news for you guys. The United States will quite literally hit its debt limit on Thursday. Start taking steps to avoid default is what Janet Yellen warns Congress to do. So we're less than 72 hours before the United States potentially defaults on loans, defaults on debts. And this will have a major impact on every citizen in the United States. I don't care if you're wealthy. I don't care if you're living paycheck to paycheck. I don't care if you're on Social Security, SSI, SSDI. I don't care if you are an entrepreneur, real estate investor who owns multiple investment properties. Everyone will be affected. If you're carrying any kind of credit card debt, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, if you're a renter surviving on benefits like Section 8, even more importantly, if you're Social Security, if you're living on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, where do you think the government will be looking to pull money from? Potentially tapping the trust funds that have been set aside for Social Security benefits. We're going to talk about that later. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen just notified Congress that the United States will reach its statutory debt limit next Thursday and asked brand new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to either suspend or increase the debt limit. Now, Janet Yellen also wrote that the Treasury Department will begin taking certain extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. Now, what do you think this could be? If Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, is talking about that, she could be taking very certain extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. Where do you think that money could be coming from? Now, they're already making moves with this $1.7 trillion bill that has been passed. Essentially, it's pretty much waiting for Biden's signature, but we're on the verge of defaulting on our debt. I'm telling you guys, they're not going to just come out and say this. They're not going to just say, hey, Social Security payments could be halted. Social Security payments could be affected. But we have to look at the reality here, folks. They're not saying that they're safe either. They're not saying that you're safe. Now, we have to look at what else is being said. And more importantly, with these politicians, what have we learned from these lawmakers over the years? You know, it's not necessarily what they say, but what they're not saying. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she also told McCarthy that it's unlikely that cash and extraordinary measures will be exhausted before June. So, okay, well, what happens after June? And the Democrats are not happy that, that the Republicans have taken over the Senate. They're not or have taken over the House. They're not happy about this. Failure to meet the government's obligations would also cause irreparable harm to the United States economy, to the stock markets, to the housing markets, to the financial markets. I'm telling you guys, and when these entrepreneur real estate investors start getting concerned, this could put a lot of people's homes, and where they consider home, it puts these properties in jeopardy. Okay, a lot of people have actually commented recently saying that their landlords not only have either gone up on their rent, but they've told the renters, they've told the tenants. And some of these are luxury apartment condos. Some of these are luxury homes that are for rent, single-family residences. Some of these are duplexes, triplexes, even quadruplex properties. All sorts of real estate. Some of the real estate investors have said, "Hey, we don't want to necessarily renew your lease. We want to sell this property. We don't trust the real estate market, the housing market." In some real estate investors' minds is on the verge of collapse. We want to get out. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But at the same time, I think that the future is a little bit uncertain. So if you happen to be renting from a real estate investor whose real estate portfolio is a little bit aggressive, don't be surprised if your real estate investor doesn't want to renew your lease just to attempt to preserve themselves, to preserve their ability to sustain themselves. Maybe they want to take some risk off the table and release some properties that are leveraged through maybe high interest mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages and whatnot. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Friday notified Congress that the United States will in fact reach its statutory debt limit on Thursday. Guys, this is less than 72 hours away. And after that, the Treasury Department this month will begin taking certain extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. So basically, the Treasury Secretary has admitted that they're willing to do whatever it takes to prevent the United States from defaulting on these loans. So the Treasury is not currently able to estimate how long these emergency actions will allow the United States to pay for government obligations. But she said it is unlikely that the cash and extraordinary measures will be exhausted before June. So if these guys can't come to an agreement before, I mean, technically 72 hours is really the cutoff. And then there's default. But then, 72 hours before the debt limit. But the default would potentially happen somewhere around June if a resolution isn't put in place and funding is made available. Now the question is, what are they going to do to get this funding freed up? Sorry about the noise here going overhead. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, we're out here in Destin today. Okay. So failure to meet the government's obligations would cause irreparable harm to the U.S. economy. If you have a 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, any type of investment brokerage account, investing in the S&P 500 or maybe even real estate REITs, whatever the case is, you have not seen a stock market crash or even a housing market crash until you've seen a United States debt default. Now, White House Press Secretary Corrine Pierre, she told reporters last Friday that Congress is they're gonna need to raise the debt limit without condition. And it is one of the basic items that Congress has to deal with, and that they should be ultimately done without any kind of conditions. Basically, it's that important. They're saying nothing is off the table. Corrine Pierre is saying this should be done without conditions. And I'm really afraid for those who are literally, they've worked their butts off their whole lives. And now they're relying on this promise that the government made to us that, hey, if you're on, if you put this much money into the system, you're due your Social Security benefits. You are due your, SSI, SSDI, whatever you collect. And it's scary that this is literally something that could be at risk. Mark my words, guys. So now, if we go back to Janet Yellen's letter, it effectively starts a clock counting down how long the federal government can continue to make interest payments on its debt. Congress, I don't know if you guys remember, Congress in December of 2021, they increased the federal debt limit to about $31.4 trillion. But this is the crazy thing. They do this all the time, and they let this crap, basically, they kick the can down the road and they wait to the last minute to increase this debt ceiling. But they know that this date is coming up. It's not like they didn't know. This happens all the time. And it puts the American people, it puts the U.S. economy, it puts the stock market, the housing market, it puts us in jeopardy. And the limit is the total amount of money that the U.S. government is allowed legally to borrow to pay for its existing obligations. And those obligations include Social Security, Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, the tax refunds, and other payments. We've already gotten warnings directly from the IRS saying, hey guys, don't expect the same size IRS tax refunds that you got last year. The IRS has also told us not to expect the tax refunds as quickly as possible. Why is this? I personally think that this has something to do with the fact that this debt ceiling is coming up, among other things. But these lawmakers are working with the IRS, and they're having these behind closed doors meetings, and they're getting together and they're sharing this information, and they're making plans. They are preparing for what is going to happen in the next 72 hours.